I was a 34-year-old software developer who thought I had a solid 6-year marriage with Amanda. But lately, my busy work schedule had us growing apart. Nothing prepared me for that evening when she coldly handed me divorce papers without warning. Something felt off about her delivery, though, like she was reading from a script. I later discovered her sister Natalie was the mastermind behind this so-called strategy to fix our marriage. If you are watching this video, let me know where you are from in the comments, and hit subscribe as I share how their plan completely backfired. I grew up in a middle-class family in Seattle, where I developed a passion for coding since I was just a kid. My parents always encouraged my interest in technology, and by high school, I was already building small websites for local businesses. After college, I landed a job at a promising tech startup, where my career really began to take off. I met Amanda at a friend's housewarming party 8 years ago. She was standing by the bookshelf examining my friend's collection when I approached her. We started talking about our favorite authors, and I was immediately drawn to her intelligence and warm laugh. She was beautiful, with long brown hair and expressive eyes that lit up when she talked about her passion for teaching. During our dating phase, I was completely smitten. I planned creative dates like stargazing picnics and surprise cooking classes. I listened intently to her dreams of becoming an elementary school teacher and working with kids who needed extra support. I remember thinking I had never met anyone who combined such compassion with practical determination. After 2 years of dating, I proposed during a hike to our favorite viewpoint overlooking the city. 6 years ago, we had a beautiful wedding ceremony by Lake Washington. It was small, just 50 of our closest friends and family, but perfect in every way. Amanda's sister Natalie was her maid of honor, giving a speech that made everyone both laugh and tear up. The early years of our marriage were wonderful. We would take weekend getaways to the Oregon coast, cook elaborate meals together on Sundays, and spend evenings planning our future. We talked about buying a house in the suburbs and starting a family once we were more financially stable. We were true partners, facing life's challenges together and celebrating each small victory. 3 years ago, my career at the startup began to advance rapidly. The company was growing, and I was given more responsibility, leading to longer hours, but also better financial stability. I was promoted twice in 18 months, and while the increased income meant we could afford the down payment on our dream house sooner, it also meant I was coming home later and spending more weekends catching up on work. Amanda had fulfilled her dream of becoming an elementary school teacher, working at a public school about 20 minutes from our apartment. She loved her students and put her heart into creating engaging lesson plans and providing extra help to kids who struggled. I admired her dedication, even when she would spend evenings grading papers or creating materials for her classroom. Throughout our marriage, Amanda had maintained a close relationship with her sister Natalie, who lived about 30 minutes away. They had weekly sister dates and talked or texted almost daily. Natalie was 3 years older than Amanda and had been divorced 2 years earlier from her husband of 4 years. After her divorce, she had reinvented herself as an outspoken feminist podcaster who gave relationship advice particularly to women who felt undervalued in their marriages. As my work hours increased, subtle changes crept into our relationship. Our weekend getaways became less frequent, then rare. Our conversations grew shorter, often limited to logistics about groceries or bill payments. Date nights were repeatedly postponed due to deadlines or Amanda's school events. I was aware of some disconnection between us, but I honestly thought we were just going through a temporary rough patch. We still said "I love you," still kissed goodbye in the mornings, still slept in each other's arms. I thought we were solid. I always had mixed feelings about Natalie. I respected her independence and resilience after her divorce, but I often felt judged by her. She would make comments about how men need to be kept in check, or how women should never settle for less than they deserve. Sometimes when Amanda returned from their sister dates, she seemed more critical of small things I did or did not do around the house, but I tried to maintain a good relationship with her for Amanda's sake. After all, she was the only sibling Amanda had. In retrospect, I should have seen the warning signs. The increasing influence Natalie seemed to have over Amanda's thinking. The podcast episodes Natalie created with titles like Marriage Ultimatums That Work and When to Threaten to Leave. The way Amanda began to reference Natalie's opinions more frequently in our discussions. But I was distracted by work, confident in the foundation of our marriage, and honestly a bit complacent. I never imagined how dramatically everything was about to change. I remember every detail of the evening Amanda presented me with divorce papers. It was a Tuesday in April, and I had actually managed to leave work at a reasonable hour for once. I stopped to pick up takeout from Amanda's favorite Thai restaurant as a small surprise. When I walked in the door, I called out cheerfully, but Amanda did not respond with her usual warmth. She was sitting at our dining table, hands folded in front of her, expression unnaturally composed. On the table was a manila folder. I set down the food, confused by the tension in the room. When I asked what was going on, Amanda took a deep breath and launched into what felt like a prepared speech. I will never forget her exact words. "I need to be honest with you, Kevin. I have been deeply unhappy in our marriage for some time now. You have consistently prioritized your work over our relationship, and I feel completely neglected and undervalued. I deserve better than to be an afterthought in your life. I have spoken with a lawyer, and I want a divorce." Then she opened the folder and slid the papers across the table toward me. I felt like I had been hit by a truck. My stomach dropped, my ears started ringing, and I literally struggled to breathe. This came completely out of nowhere. Yes, things had been a bit distant lately, but divorce, without ever even mentioning she was this unhappy. Without trying counseling or having a serious conversation about our issues, I immediately began begging for another chance. I promised to change, to work less, to be more attentive. I suggested marriage counseling, a second honeymoon. Anything to save what I thought had been a good marriage with temporary problems. What struck me as odd, even through my panic, was Amanda's reaction. She seemed almost disappointed that I did not fight back more, or get angry. She kept looking down at her notes like she had expected the conversation to go differently, and was not sure how to proceed when I simply accepted blame and pleaded for another chance. I called my boss that night and took emergency leave. For the next several days, I was in emotional turmoil, barely eating or sleeping. I kept trying to talk to Amanda to understand how we had reached this point, but she maintained an unusual emotional distance, repeating phrases that sounded rehearsed about needing space to reconsider her options now that I was finally taking her seriously. The revelation came 4 days after she had presented the divorce papers. Amanda had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. A text message notification appeared from Natalie. Normally, I would never read Amanda's messages, but the preview text caught my eye. Did the divorce threat work? Is he stepping up now? Confused and increasingly suspicious, I began to investigate. While Amanda was at work the next day, I found her journal in her bedside drawer. I know looking through her private writings was a violation of trust, but I felt like I was fighting for my marriage and needed to understand what was really happening. What I found left me stunned. There in Amanda's handwriting was a detailed husband improvement plan. It included steps like presenting divorce papers to shock me into change a script for the confrontation, and expected concessions I would make once faced with losing her. The plan even had a timeline for my reformation into a more attentive husband. Even more disturbing, I found the link to a recent episode of Natalie's podcast, where she advised wives that sometimes the only way to wake up a neglectful husband was to threaten divorce, even if they did not actually want to end the placet's marriage. She called it a wake-up call strategy that would shock men into appreciating their wives again. When Amanda came home that evening, I confronted her with what I had discovered. Initially, she tried to deny it, but when I mentioned the text and showed her the notes I had found, she broke down in tears. Through her sobs, she confessed that yes, the divorce threat had been a strategy suggested by Natalie. Amanda admitted she had been feeling neglected with my long work hours and diminishing quality time, but Natalie had convinced her that simply talking to me would not work. Men only respond to dramatic consequences, Natalie had told her. You need to shock him into change. The worst part was hearing Amanda say she never actually wanted a divorce. She just wanted our marriage to improve, for me to be present and engaged again like I had been during our dating years. She thought this strategy was the only way to save our relationship, not destroy it. I felt a deep sense of betrayal and anger toward both Amanda and Natalie. This was not how partners should treat each other. If Amanda was unhappy, she should have told me directly, not fabricated a divorce threat as manipulation. And Natalie had clearly overstepped by coaching my wife to use such a destructive tactic in our marriage. That night, I packed a bag and told Amanda I needed space to process everything. I called my friend Jake, who immediately offered his spare room. As I drove to his place, my mind was racing with questions. How could I ever trust Amanda again? Was our entire marriage built on manipulation rather than honest communication? And how could I even begin to address the toxic influence her sister had on our relationship? The week I spent at Jake's apartment was a blur of confusion, anger, and heartache. Jake, who had been my friend since college, gave me the space to process while also offering his perspective when asked. As a recently married man himself, he was appalled by what Amanda and Natalie had done. "This is manipulation, not communication," he told me one night as we sat on his balcony drinking beer. "If Sarah ever pulled something like this instead of just telling me she was unhappy, I would have a hard time trusting her judgment again. Marriage is supposed to be about honesty." Jake's words resonated with me. This was not just about feeling neglected or my admittedly excessive work hours. This was about a fundamental breakdown in how we approached problems in our relationship. The fact that Amanda had turned to Natalie's manipulative tactics rather than having an honest conversation with me revealed something concerning about her conflict resolution skills and possibly her respect for me as a partner. After 3 days at Jake's, I decided to confront Natalie directly. I drove to her apartment unannounced, knowing she worked from home on her podcast. When she opened the door, her surprise quickly turned to defensiveness as I asked if I could come in to talk about the divorce scheme she had orchestrated. Natalie did not even try to deny her involvement. Instead, she doubled down, insisting that her advice had been sound. "Men only change when they fear losing something valuable," she said with absolute conviction. "I have helped dozens of women get their husbands' attention this way. The problem is not my advice, it is that men like you take their wives for granted until they are about to walk out the door." Our conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument. I pointed out the hypocrisy and damage of her approach, how it undermined trust and replaced honest communication with manipulation. I asked her how she would feel if her partner had fabricated a major life crisis just to get her to change her behavior. Natalie was unmoved. Her own failed marriage had clearly colored her view of all male-female relationships as power struggles rather than partnerships. As our argument reached a stalemate, she finally said something that showed just how deeply she misunderstood healthy relationships. "At least Amanda finally got your attention. Before this, you were perfectly content to neglect her while she suffered in silence." What Natalie failed to grasp was that I had never been content with the growing distance in our marriage. I had been caught in a demanding work situation and had not realized how serious the problem had become, but I would have responded to an honest conversation. There had been no need for nuclear options and manufactured crises. Meanwhile, Amanda was desperately trying to reach me. My phone was filled with messages, apologizing, explaining her perspective, and begging for another conversation. I read them all but was not ready to respond yet. I needed to understand my own feelings first. I called my parents, who had been happily married for 38 years. They offered a balanced perspective that helped me see through my anger. Mom reminded me that everyone makes mistakes in relationships, while Dad pointed out that how Amanda handled this situation moving forward would tell me everything I needed to know about our future. "What is more important, Kevin? What she did when she was influenced by bad advice, or what she does now when she sees the consequences of that choice?" Dad asked. A week after I had moved out, Amanda showed up at Jake's apartment. Jake texted me that she was downstairs asking if I wanted to see her. I agreed, and when I went down to the building's lobby, I found her looking completely different from the composed woman who had handed me divorce papers. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, her hair pulled back messily, her whole body seeming smaller somehow. The moment she saw me, she broke down completely. Between sobs, she explained how she had realized the enormous mistake she had made, how she had allowed Natalie's bitterness to influence her instead of trusting in our marriage, how seeing my pain and feeling the potential loss of our relationship had made her understand the damage her dishonesty had caused. "I have cut contact with Natalie," she told me, her voice shaking. "She was wrong, and I was wrong to listen to her. I should have just told you I was feeling neglected. We could have worked through it together without all this pain." Despite her obvious remorse, I was still struggling with an internal conflict. I still loved Amanda, but I did not know if I could trust her judgment anymore. If she had been so easily influenced by Natalie in this massive decision, what other areas of our marriage might be similarly affected? Over the next few days, several of Amanda's teacher colleagues reached out to me concerned about her emotional state. Apparently, she had been crying between classes and looked like she had not been sleeping. One of her closest work friends, Tina, told me that Amanda had confided in her about the situation and was devastated by her own actions. "She knows she messed up badly," Tina said. "She talks about you with so much love, Kevin. She is terrified. She has destroyed everything over a stupid plan that was never what she really wanted." I decided to attend a therapy session alone to help process my feelings. The therapist, a calm older woman named Dr. Marshall, helped me distinguish between ultimatums and honest communication in relationships. What your wife did under her sister's influence was attempt to use fear as a motivator for change, Dr. Marshall explained. That is fundamentally different from expressing a genuine need and establishing boundaries around that need. The question you need to answer is whether this represents a pattern in your relationship or a terrible but isolated mistake. As I reflected on our 6 years together, I recognized that this manipulative approach was not typical of Amanda. She had always been straightforward and kind in our disagreements before. This seemed more like Natalie's influence than Amanda's true character. That realization helped me begin to separate my feelings about the event from my feelings about Amanda herself. By the end of that session, I was approaching a decision point. Was real forgiveness possible? Could we rebuild what had been broken? And most importantly, was our marriage worth fighting for, despite this massive breach of trust? After 2 weeks apart and much soul-searching, I realized that our marriage was worth fighting for, but only if we could establish complete honesty moving forward. I texted Amanda and asked her to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop we used to frequent during our dating days. I arrived early and prepared what I wanted to say. When Amanda walked in, she looked nervous but hopeful. I had decided to be direct but compassionate, focusing on the future rather than continuing to rehash the past. "I've spent a lot of time thinking about us," I began after we sat down with our coffees. "I still love you, Amanda. 6 years of marriage and 8 years together is not something I can just walk away from without trying to save it. But what happened has fundamentally changed how I see our relationship." I explained that trust had been broken not just by the divorce threat itself, but by the fact that she had turned to Natalie instead of coming to me directly with her feelings of neglect. I acknowledged my role in our growing distance, how my work hours and distraction had made her feel unimportant. But I emphasized that manipulation could never be part of a healthy relationship. "True partnership means we face problems together," I said. "It means direct communication, even when that is uncomfortable. I take responsibility for not being as present as I should have been, but you need to take responsibility for choosing manipulation over honesty." Amanda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I have thought about it constantly," she said. "I was so wrong to listen to Natalie instead of trusting in us. Her advice comes from her own failed marriage, not from understanding what we have." I could see her remorse was genuine, but I needed more than apologies. I needed commitment to a new approach. So I presented her with 2 options: divorce for real or rebuild our marriage with complete honesty and new boundaries. The shocked look on Amanda's face when she realized I was serious about the possibility of divorce showed me she had never truly considered that outcome. Her sister's plan had assumed I would simply fall in line, once threatened, not that I might decide our trust was too broken to continue. "If we stay together," I continued, "we need couples counseling and a commitment to total transparency. And I need you to establish firm boundaries with Natalie regarding her influence on our marriage." Amanda agreed immediately to my conditions. We had an open discussion about what we both needed to change: me with my work life, balance her with her communication style, and family boundaries. I told her I was willing to move back home, but with a clear 3-month reassessment timeline. If either of us felt we could not rebuild trust by then, we would revisit the divorce option, but this time as a mutual, honest decision. Our first couples therapy session the following week was raw and uncomfortable. The therapist, Dr. Wilson, created a safe space for us to discuss both the recent crisis and the underlying issues that had led to our disconnection. Amanda spoke honestly about feeling increasingly invisible in my busy life, while I shared how blindsided and betrayed I felt by her approach to addressing her unhappiness. Dr. Wilson introduced us to the concept of love languages and communication styles, helping us see how we had been missing each other's attempts to connect. Amanda expressed love through quality time and conversation, while I had been focusing on acts of service and providing financial security. Neither approach was wrong, but we needed to understand and accommodate each other's needs. The most powerful moment came when Dr. Wilson asked Amanda to explain why she had been so susceptible to Natalie's advice. Her answer revealed an insecurity I had never fully understood. "I have always admired how confident Natalie is," Amanda said quietly. When I told her I was feeling neglected, she made it seem like I was being naive by thinking a simple conversation would change anything. She told me about all these women whose husbands only appreciated them after almost losing them. I wanted to be strong like that, not weak and needy. That insight helped me understand that Amanda's actions, while misguided, came from a place of vulnerability rather than malice. She had been trying to save our marriage, albeit in a deeply flawed way. That understanding did not immediately restore trust, but it opened a door to forgiveness that had previously seemed locked. The next 3 months were a time of intensive work on our marriage. I made significant adjustments at work, delegating more responsibilities and setting firm boundaries around my time. I returned to coming home by 6:30 most evenings and protected our weekends as sacred couple time. We established a tradition of Wednesday date nights and daily morning check-ins over coffee before work. Amanda committed fully to our healing process. She continued with personal therapy alongside our couples sessions, working through her tendency to seek outside validation and her difficulty expressing needs directly. She established clear boundaries with her family, particularly Natalie, making it clear that our marriage decisions would be made solely by the two of us. The situation with Natalie took an interesting turn when I anonymously contacted several sponsors of her podcast, sharing how her advice to threaten divorce as a manipulation tactic was damaging real marriages. Within weeks, she had lost 3 major advertisers. Amanda was initially upset when she found out what I had done, but eventually acknowledged that Natalie's advice had been genuinely harmful and needed some consequence. Meanwhile, Amanda developed healthier friendships outside her sister's influence. She became closer with her colleague Tina and joined a book club that introduced her to women with more positive views on partnership and communication. These new influences helped counter the years of Natalie's cynical perspective on men and marriage. We created a new communication system in our relationship, including weekly State of the Union discussions, where we would openly share any concerns or needs before they became major issues. These structured conversations felt awkward at first, but soon became valuable touchpoints that prevented small problems from festering into relationship-threatening crises. At work, I was surprisingly offered a promotion to project manager, a role that came with more responsibility, but actually better work-life balance, as I would be overseeing projects rather than handling the late-night coding emergencies myself. The company had realized my emergency leave had exposed a weakness in their structure, and my new position would help create more sustainable workloads for the entire team. After 2 months of no contact, Amanda eventually began to cautiously reconnect with Natalie, but with clear boundaries. I supported this as I knew their sisterhood was important to Amanda, but I made it clear that Natalie's involvement in our marriage decisions was permanently off limits. To my surprise, Natalie showed a grudging respect for me after seeing the positive changes in our relationship and Amanda's increased confidence in expressing her needs directly. For our wedding anniversary, I planned a surprise weekend trip to the Oregon coast where we had spent many happy weekends in our early marriage. We walked on the beach, talked honestly about our journey, and renewed our commitment to each other. Amanda gave me a handwritten letter expressing her gratitude for my willingness to rebuild rather than walk away, and I gave her a simple bracelet engraved with the words, "Partnership, Honesty, Growth, Love." That weekend, we also decided to share our experience by teaching a workshop at our church about honest communication in marriage. We did not share the specific details of our crisis, but we openly discussed how avoiding difficult conversations can lead to bigger problems and how outside influences sometimes need to be carefully evaluated. The positive response from other couples reinforced our belief that our painful experience might help others avoid similar pitfalls. As the 3-month reassessment date approached, neither of us mentioned divorce. We had found our way back to each other, not through manipulation or ultimatums, but through the harder, more authentic work of honest communication and mutual growth. 1 year after the divorce papers incident, our marriage was stronger and more authentic than ever before. The crisis had revealed both weaknesses and strengths in our relationship that might have remained hidden otherwise. Amanda had grown in confidence and direct communication, no longer feeling the need to borrow Natalie's confrontational approach when she had legitimate needs to express. I had gained a deeper understanding of how my work habits had affected our connection and learned to create clearer boundaries between my professional and personal life. Our new approach to marriage centered on partnership rather than power struggles, with both of us taking responsibility for nurturing our relationship. The most important insight I gained through this experience was that real change comes from love, not fear. When Amanda threatened divorce, my immediate response was panic and desperate promises to change. But lasting transformation came from a place of choosing our relationship freely, with clear eyes about both its imperfections and its value. We recently decided to start trying for a family, feeling confident that we now have a solid foundation for facing the challenges of parenthood together. The thought of raising children with Amanda fills me with joy and purpose, especially knowing we have developed the communication tools to navigate that journey as true partners. Looking back, I can now see that forgiveness was not a single moment, but a process that unfolded over time. The breach of trust, created by the fake divorce threat, was healed not by grand gestures, but by daily choices, to be honest, vulnerable, and present with each other. We both gained a deeper appreciation for the honest struggle of relationship over manipulative quick fixes. Have you ever faced a moment when trust was broken in your relationship? How did you decide whether to rebuild or walk away? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more about navigating the complexities of modern relationships. I truly believe that with honesty and mutual respect, even our deepest relationship challenges can become opportunities for growth. Thank you for listening to my story.